Hi, welcome everyone. Welcome to the fifth quarterly meeting of the Global Action Hub on Waste Methane and Environmental Justice. My name is Sonia Studillo, GAIA Global Climate Communications Officer. We are recording this meeting for documentation and allow people who can't join at the last minute to get access to this call. Before we get started, let us go over some housekeeping rules. This webinar is available in three languages: English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Click the language button at the bottom of your Zoom. To get to know you, please change your display name to your name, your organization, and your country. Example, Mariel Vilea, Gaia, UK. We have several panel speakers today. Please use the chat to send your questions anytime during the presentation. If time allows, we can also unmute some of you to ask your questions directly. And we have technical support available named as Gaia Tech Support. Please reach out directly via direct message if you're having technical issues. And most important, stay present, engage, contribute, assuming the best intention in everyone. Now, I'd like to turn you over to Ama Asidio, Gaia Africa Program Associate for Zero Waste and Climate Program, who will be moderating this session. Ama?
Thank you so much, Sonia. Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity to moderate the space of the Global Action Hub. My name is Ama Champoma Asiedu from Gaia Africa, and I'm really happy to be here with you today to talk about methane, waste, and environmental justice. I'm joining you from Ghana, Sunyani to be precise, which is known as one of the cleanest cities in Ghana and still striving to maintain the status through proper waste management. Many of you know about the space, yeah, but those of you who are here for the first time, I will briefly introduce the Global Action Hub. The Global Action Hub responds to one Gaia's main strategic priorities, which is to support organizing and policy work for methane reduction with environmental justice, currently thriving in many countries, cities, and communities. It was launched at the Waste Methane and Environmental Justice Summit, celebrated in Tanzania in 2024. In that summit, we brought together many different stakeholders working on waste methane and decided to create a space where we can continue discussing these topics. There was a great momentum, and this is why we felt the need to have an open space to discuss waste methane and environmental justice. This is one of our strategic priorities. Organizing and advocating for waste methane reduction with environmental justice. The Global Methane Hub is an online space to collectively assess, address, and celebrate the advancements of waste methane with environmental justice and support the implementation of the Global Methane Pledge in alignment with environmental justice principles. An open space to support all those working to this agenda and share expertise, strategies, celebrate, and ultimately hold an accountability space for environmental justice in the intersection between waste and climate. Let's quickly run through the agenda for today. Today, our agenda is packed with topics that are especially timely as we gear up for COP30, which is just around the corner. We'll be exploring opportunities and challenges in advancing policy on waste methane, just transition, climate finance, and more. One of the highlights will be just transition, a critical theme on COP30 agenda, is the perfect moment to go deeper into this topic and unpack the complex issues surrounding waste methane, particularly the challenges faced by waste pickers in the global south. Because this is a space for learning, we also want to share the latest technical guidance assessment recently published in Gaia, which offers important insights for our work. And finally, let's take a moment to celebrate the launch of the new cohort of environmental justice projects working on organic waste and methane reduction in US. Exciting step forward for our global community. To cover all these important topics, I'm very honored to introduce our panel of experts. Thank you all for being here today. Joining us here are Bharat Nagar, Waste Sector Lead, High Level Climate Champion Team. He will provide introductions and updates from the COP30 presidency on the Activation Group on Solid Waste Management. We have Amira Sewas, Just Transition Working Group at Cannes International. She will speak on why social equity and worker protections are critical in climate action. We have Severino Lima, President of the International Alliance of Waste Pickers. He will discuss the role of waste pickers in climate change mitigation and share expectations for COP30. We have Marielle Vieira, GAIA's Global Climate Program Director. Marielle will open key stakes and opportunities at COP30 for the waste methane agenda. Next, we will explore waste, conflict, and community resistance. Lucia Fernandez, editor of Contested Waste, Environmental Conflicts, and Waste Picker Resilience in Global South, will present her work on this critical topic. And then we have something on resources and new publication. Cecilia Allen, Zero Waste Cities lead at GAIA, will present GAIA's technical guidance series and highlight new tools for policymakers and financiers. Finally, we'll have a quick video and update from the US on their ongoing environmental justice cohort meeting. The NIA will join us for the environmental justice cohort meeting, sharing real-time insights and experiences. So, without further ado, I want to give the floor to our panel of speakers to discuss the critical intersections of waste management, climate action, social equity, and opportunities at COP30. And I want to mention that if you have any questions, please feel free to write up in the chat box and we will collect them and respond together afterwards. So, our first speaker is Bharat Nagar, climate champion and WISPIC sector lead. Welcome, Bharat. You will be leading the activation group on solid waste management within the COP30 presidency. Can you share with us what has been happening in the group and what outcomes you hope to achieve at COP30? You have the floor, Bharat.
Thank you, Amma. So may I be allowed to share the screens or somebody would roll from your team side? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So basically, today I would be able to give you some brief updates from the activation group because this COP30 happening at Brazil has taken a new orientation and it's a revisit of the global stock take which happened in Glasgow during the COP. So I would be sharing a couple of details, and I would also try to introduce you to the new orientation that how the global stock take has been divided into different themes and axis groups. So may I request to move the next slide, please? Yeah, thank you. So basically, this COP is based upon the spirit of Mutirao, which in Brazil means build momentum around climate action and ambition, leveraging the power of the collective. So we, the people of Earth, are organizing this COP for the betterment of our future. And from vision to action, there is a global mobilization happening towards climate delivery. The action agenda in the COP should push the NDCs or the national determined contributions implementation by first leveraging existing initiatives to push the implementation. Second, fostering transparency to spotlight the real delivery. Third is consolidating scalable context ready solutions. And fourth is the activating coordinated action to unlock roadblocks. So these are the four action agenda points on which the entire discussion on the COP30 would be based upon. Next slide, please. And the COP30 will begin to build the next 10 years of the action agenda. It will seek to address three major challenges. The first, connect the action agenda with the outcomes of the negotiations, which help the action agenda to the points already agreed upon the UNFCCC and the Paris Agreement. Second is build on existing initiatives to leverage the strength of already existing initiatives to achieve an acceleration into the implementation of the agreement. So the focus is basically to implement and assess that what is the present conditions performance, and in coming years how we plan to monitor the progress related to the focused agendas. And final is to monitor the progress, which would ensure transparency and monitoring of promises and both new and existing initiatives. So basically, we are talking about the initiatives and the performance accelerated solutions. So this year, we have 6 axes with 30 key objectives and the multiple solutions. So the whole agenda starts from the 6 axis, which has 30 key objectives or the activation groups, and there are multiple solutions which are being talked about. And this structure very clearly talk about the approach with 3 circles embedded together, showing the cross agenda or basically the internal integrated relationships between the 3 approach. Next, please. So this slide talks about the basically 5 axes on which the global stock take has been divided, covering the mitigation, adaptation, and the means of implementation. The first one talks about the transitioning energy and industry and transport. Second is the stewarding forest, oceans, and biodiversity. Third axis talks about the transforming agriculture and food systems. Fourth talks about the building resilience for cities, infrastructure, and water. And our activation group number 15 is placed under the axis number 4, which is basically the building resilience for cities, infrastructure, and water. And fifth axis talks about the fostering human and social development. And sixth one, which is the cross-cutting, that talks about unleashing enablers and accelerators, including on financing, technology, and capacity building. So this sixth group is basically the cross-cutting one, which passes through each and every aspect of or above 5 axes and the activation groups. So this is how the structure have been laid upon, and this is again a revision of the global stock take which had happened in Glasgow in I think 23 or 24. And after that, now again the strings are being discussed, revalidated, and reconsolidated, and these would be monitored for the next 3 years to ensure that we are moving on a globally uniform agenda points with very coherent outputs and monitoring done with a total transparency approach. Next, please. This slide talks about all the key objectives or the activation groups, what we talk about. So if you refer to the building resilience and cities infrastructure, so we are placed at group number 15, solid waste management. And I'm happy to, again say that this is for the first time the subject of solid waste is having a great importance according to it, and under which there is an initiative which is being proposed by jointly by climate champions and UNEP team, which would be coming up as a food waste breakthrough agenda, first time coming under the Marrakesh partnership. And as we build the momentum, slowly the solid waste along with water and other issues would be able to find its prominent place in the Marrakesh agenda partnership, and we would see a future growth being pushed upon through this inclusion of agenda at the COP level in the international arena. And I'm not going to read that. These slides would be shared with everybody, so they would have the ample time to read about. And I would also like to say that information which is shared in the public domain, I'm only trying to share this information. You can find also, the composition of activation groups at the COP30 website also, which has been coming from the COP30 presidency, government of Brazil. So this is the only information I was allowed to share because things are already in progress. So, you all are very wise people. So I know I need not to, share the importance of the strategic documents which have limited access, and slowly they would be unraveled as we see the COP approaching by. May I request for the next slide, please? So this is a composition of our activation group number 15. So it has basically three components. One is the initiatives. So initiatives are the organizations who are part of our activation group. Second is the COP30 presidency, where we have the focal points. We also have the focal point from UNFCCC, and we also have the focal point from Marrakesh Partnership, which is Mr. Yonis Arikan from Italy. We have Maria Clara, who is the presidency focal point, and I also have our colleague Monique Nardi, who represents the UNFCCC focal point. And we also have the Brazilian ministries. So these two ministries are very important partners to spearhead the acceleration initiatives. And these all are, so you can see that all major organizations which are working across with a more strong focus on Latin American countries where the COP is happening. We have tried to balance the partnership, and we still are growing in terms of more partners joining hands for the implementation of the accelerated initiatives. So they basically we have a greenery of solutions where we have tried to produce the global best practices or the or the learnings which have been derived from the global activities of the partners engaged in the solid waste management. They are available already for the public, which were inaugurated on 23rd of September during the New York Climate Week. And I would just give you a glimpse as well on that website where we have uploaded the greenery of solutions or the best practices. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you. So this slides talks about the progress. So as far as the activation group progress is concerned, we have already conducted 5 meetings for so far. The group has identified 14 initiatives. So initiatives are the one which we term as a best practice, or which we also call as the lesson learned, which are uploaded on the NASCA portal or NASCA climate portal of the UNFCCC, and that is also anchored at the moment in form of greenery of solutions at the Climate Champions website. I have given the link in the presentation. It is already open for the public, general public, and so you may find the success stories for all cross-cutting areas, all access groups and activation groups, all 31. So it is a good repository for anyone to have a glimpse of what is happening around for each agenda points and each cross-cutting issues. So under this, we have identified 14 initiatives with 9 activities already engaged. So the UNFC climate portal, so called as Greenery of Solutions, shared 22 solutions, banks, and 6 success stories, which had a very strong process of evaluation. So not all has been uploaded because that the team, the evaluation team wanted to strike a balance, and it was filtered through a cycle of multiple, cycles of evaluation. And after that, only very few of them have find place. This is still ongoing process. We are still receiving a lot of initiatives. And by the time COP starts up, you would find multiple knowledge banks, a lot of success stories uploaded at the website. It is now open. So I'm can you please click? Okay, let us leave the hyperlink for the website. People may click it after the presentation. And the activation group has also received 4 plan to accelerate solutions, of which 2 were submitted by the Brazilian Ministry of Environment. So this shows that how the host country is very active, responding very positively with great responsibility, and setting a global standard for the other countries to follow in the coming days. So it is going to put up a lot of pressure and for the countries, and assume the role what Brazil has assumed at this point of time. So in out of this accelerated solutions, I cannot disclose them at the moment because they are still ongoing process. But one great initiative what we have been doing with the support of Maria and other colleagues from Vigo and other organizations, that we are trying to unify all these four accelerated solutions, which are coming from Global Methane Hub, Brazilian Ministry of Environment. It is also being supported by Avena Foundation. It is coming from the Global Food Banking Network. So all, and even the UNEP and the CCAC. So they all are being merged into one grand unified accelerated solution, which would help us to monitor the various component of the all these four proposed accelerated solutions. So very soon the draft would also be released for general public. It is still under progress. But these accelerated solutions are nothing but a framework of the key performance indicators, whereby different partners have taken the responsibility of monitoring and reporting that particular key performance indicator. So these all small KPIs, they compiled all, they create an accelerated solution. So which is being monitored globally with the different partners who have, taken the lead or volunteered to basically monitor the KPIs. So these would be monitored for next 3 years till COP till 2028, and we would like to see that what have been the level of implementation, what have been the level of efficacy, what we should do for improving it in. So every year, next COPs, you would see that these accelerated solutions KPI is being reported, and it would also allow the global stocktake to monitor the progress of our future agendas for achieving the climate neutrality and 1.5 degree agenda as well. And then coming to the opportunities for methane mitigation at COP30. So this, I think there are some sections of the slides are missing a bit actually. Could you please just reduce the resolution, please? Or maybe just drag on the upper side. Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. So let me come to the opportunities which exist. Yeah, thank you. So the grand opportunity is what we are overseeing for discussion in the upcoming COP through the unified version of accelerated solutions would be: first is to mainstream circular economy pathways, integrating organic waste recovery, composting, and methane capture within the national determined contributions and MRV frameworks. So till date, if you see the whole, repository of NDCs at the UNFCCC website, only 29 countries have accorded importance to waste-related parameters to monitor methane, and have formulated the mitigated solutions or other adaptation pathways to reduce the impact of methane and other waste-related factors. So we still have to work very hard. We need to improve the standing focus of methane at the international level, and this COP is going to have a great focus on that. Second, to launch the global food waste breakthrough agenda at COP30 to halve the food waste and achieve up to 7% global methane reduction by 2030. So this is a 5-year program which have been jointly formulated by Climate Champions team and the UNEP team, and this holds a very promising focus on minimization of food waste, and also there is a very strong capacity building component. This agenda, this breakthrough has already been adopted by 3 countries, that is the UAE, UK, and Switzerland. So they already have adopted this, and it has been very, accepted by the HoReCa sector across the globe, and many partners have been found. So this all information would be, availed for the public when this is formally launched on during the upcoming COP. That is so this is going to be a very important achievement for us. Then this COP would also provide a great platform for enabling inclusive carbon finance access for waste pickers and food recovery systems via measurable data and verified carbon credits. So when we talk about the informal sector's contribution, so we see that there are very, very less initiatives or opportunities globally, used for exploring that this carbon finance could bring capital mobilization, or it could benefit the informal sector workers. So when we have the measurable data and verified carbon credits, it would provide a framework and a way forward for bringing this finance access to the informal sector people globally. And then finally, this COP would also provide opportunities to strengthen the multi-level governance and also focus on financing coalitions, cities, linking various cities, SMEs, and national programs to scale equitable methane mitigation. So this COP has a very, very strong focus on methane and food waste mitigation. Of course, Maria, very thanks. So she has already shared the food waste breakthrough. So you can run through it. And I hope, and you, if you want to partner with UNEP, I would say there is a declaration. Please feel free to sign that declaration and mail that declaration or acceptance or endorsement to the concerned person at UNEP team. So you're always welcome to join. And we hope that this all initiatives and this COP would bring a very meaningful, uh, uh, accountable and transparent approach to ensure that we all are able to meet our global objectives. Many thanks. So I end my presentation here only, and would happy to respond to any related queries, or as the as Emma would like to proceed further. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Bharat. We are really grateful for the information that you have shared and the overall overview that you've given to us. I think one key takeaway from your presentation that I would like to highlight is the growing awareness about the potential for climate mitigation and adaptation in the waste sector. It's great to see so much traction. Thanks so much, Bharat. And as he mentioned, if you have questions, please type in the chat box and we will answer accordingly. Up next, we have Amira Sawas from Khan International. Amira, we know that Khan has recently launched the global campaign, that is the Just Transition Rising, and pushing for the Billion Action Mechanism at COP30. Could you tell us more about this campaign? Why social equity and protecting workers matter so much in climate action, and what your expectations for COP30 are?
Thank you so much. And I really appreciate being able to join you all here today. It's such a critical topic area that you work on. I should say I did my PhD in water and sanitation. And so sanitation and waste management were like quite central to what I was working on then. So I really recognize the importance of it, even if it's not always politically sexy, if you know what I mean. So um, thanks for having me. So my role is as co-coordinator of the Climate Action Network's Just Transition Working Group. Climate Action Network has, I think, over 2,000 members. We work really closely as part of the environmental constituency in the COP space, but we also work super closely with the other constituencies there. So we work with the trade unions, with the women and gender constituency, with the Indigenous peoples constituency, the youth constituency, sometimes the business constituency. And so this proposal to escalate justice in just transition at COP30 is something that we've all worked on together over the last year, rather than just the environmental constituency. And I think that's quite important to ensure that it has the kind of cross-sectoral lens that we definitely need for just transitions to happen. So what is the Just Transition Work Programme in the COP space? If some of you are super familiar, I apologize, but I also like to remind myself sometimes because it's not been around for that long, actually. So the JTWP, in short, was established in 2022 as part of COP27 cover decision, outlined in the Sharm el Sheikh implementation plan. So that was where it was kind of first officially recognized as an idea or as a plan to establish. And then a draft decision was developed to be considered in Dubai at COP28, and the decision was adopted. And so part of that decision said the work should start straight away, immediately. And so since then, there have been 4 official dialogues where basically you get together with the constituencies and the negotiators to talk about different areas that we need to progress in this program. And then there's been 1.5 negotiations, you can say, one in Baku, and then the halves, you can say, in Bonn the year before, and the Bonn that's just been. I think one thing to say in general about this work program is because it's new, it's a space of opportunity and challenge. On the one hand, it's positive that we're finally getting language around justice and connecting to ordinary people's lives in the official negotiations more specifically. But with new opportunity also comes challenge, and some things that have been happening have been around, for example, fear that ambitious demands in this work program around particular issues like finance, for example, might distract from the very important and ambitious demands in the finance tracks of the negotiation, just as one example. Another risk that's happening is that topics that are unresolved elsewhere are sometimes getting moved into this negotiation space. So the topic of trade, which is absolutely critical, right, for countries to actually make the energy transition, especially countries that are facing systemic injustices around the macroeconomy. We have to address trade injustice to enable that. But trade obviously goes far beyond the scope of only the UNFCCC, and so it's become a bit tricky. So it's ended up in the space. So a lot of what we've tried to do as cross constituencies is come up with something which can pursue justice as a central organizing principle, but also promote new forms of international cooperation and some hope around multilateralism in a moment in time where many of us are feeling really despondent and depressed about the failure of the UNFCCC process to bring about the financing that is required for the transition and for climate action more broadly, and also the broader landscape of kind of, yes, sort of fascist shifts and governments acting on their own and unilateral measures. So just wanted to share the context of the idea. Next slide, please. So I won't read all of these objectives, but there were these many objectives under the program. And the main point to take away here is that necessarily the Just Transition Work Program is very broad. Because of course, as we all know, like when we're talking about how you transition, we're talking about full socioeconomic transition, right? Which are happening within national contexts, but it also has to be enabled by international cooperation, especially in countries, as I said, that are at the forefront of the historical and current injustices, not just around colonialism and the impact on economies, but you know, the way that global politics works and the way that climate impacts are hitting countries that didn't cause the problem. So a lot of these objectives are quite broad. They cover sustainable development and poverty eradication. They cover workforce, justice for workers. They cover social protection. They cover needing inclusive and participatory approaches. And they also cover international cooperation as an enabler of just transition pathways. Next slide, please. So when we decided collectively that we want to pursue something which can bring about challenge and opportunity and a sense of agency in the UNFCCC space through this new work program, we did identify, firstly, with it being so broad, there are some challenges to harness. And secondly, the wider context of gaps that we need to address with our proposition. So currently the gaps with the Just Transition Work Programme are, which won't be a surprise now that you've seen all of the objectives, that there is a lack of a common framework and vocabulary. So, of course, many of us have our ideas about what is just transition, but there's different layers to how that can be debated. Firstly, there are key principles that have emerged from the ILO, from workers and unions, and also from the feminist movement and others. But those principles have not necessarily made it into the Just Transition Work Programme space. So the first thing that we did was say, okay, let's look at all the principles that are out there that have already been generated and practiced by different movements and nations and others, and let's pull them together into a list of key principles. So we did that. They are listed in a briefing I'm going to tell you about shortly. But we also noted, even with those principles, so for example, the principle of participation and inclusive consultation as one, that can be interpreted inconsistently and differently in different contexts across different sectors and so on. So that's the first issue. The other issue you have politically is if you don't have clear, articulated implementation approaches, then you can be told by actors who don't really want to do it, oh, this is confusing, what do you really mean anyway? And that's one of the strategies in the negotiations sometimes, is to act confused. So states will often act confused when they don't want to act, basically. So we feel it's important to remove scope for that to be used, basically. The second issue is there is action happening on just transition. I'm sure many of you are working on it in different ways, but it's siloed, and fragmented. And because the barriers to global just transition are global, if we continue to allow fragmented action, that means that the systemic barriers are not being addressed. So, of course, this is not to deny the fantastic work that's being done by unions, by feminist movements, by youth movements, by some businesses and others on just transition. But we need to be able to step back and say, this is also a global issue and it requires responsibility and coordination. The third area, which is a kind of outcome of that to an extent, is the gap in finance and what's called in the COP space the means of implementation. So the bit that everyone is pretty much from the blocks from the global south are frustrated about is that finance, technology transfer and capacity building, the responsibilities of countries that caused the crisis are not being taken into account, they're not being transferred. And so this kind of continues when you don't have a global approach. And then, of course, overall, even where there is really good work, it isn't necessarily always integrated into climate objectives. And there isn't really anywhere that's kind of coordinating all of this knowledge of what's happening globally. Next slide, please. Thank you. So across these constituencies, as well as saying we need some principles, some common principles, we need to know what's working and what's not working. But we also need something to help bring together like the sense of agency and the sense of hope in multilateralism and responsibility, but also a sense of coordination. So this is now called the Belém Action Mechanism, the BAM, for just transition. And this is what we're basically asking nations to agree to this year. This is our key advocacy ask. This is, we continue as a movement, climate justice movement, we continue to make demands around financing, adaptation, around all of the key areas. But in the Just Transition Work Programme, this is our key demand. Basically, we want to come out of this COP with something that, like I said, gives a sense of progress on international cooperation and a sense of progress that's putting people at the center, because that isn't always what happens, right? It's usually can be theoretical decisions that get taken which don't necessarily end up in action on the side of justice, particularly for the most vulnerable or the people that are going to be most affected by the transition. So the purpose of this is to set a common intention to converge and understand the landscape of just transition approaches, to strengthen coordination, to fill gaps, and to deepen and create knowledge on just transition pathways. So how does a nation or a region articulate a pathway of just transition with all of the context that we have at the moment? And we also need to identify ways forward on international cooperation. What does the financing look like for that, for example? What does technology transfer look like? How do you address the huge barrier around trade? Is there a need to link to other processes? These are the sorts of questions we need to answer. And aligning just transition pathways, the ones that exist and the ones that are going to be created with the Paris Agreement, because we need the transition to be just and equitable. We need it to be sustainable. There's so many layers to this, and so we need to coordinate. So the BAM at the moment we're proposing would have three functions. The first one is coordination, so coherence with the wider UNFCCC. As I mentioned, I don't want to keep repeating that. Apologies that I have. The second area is around action and support. So like in really like being specific about the action and support that countries need, how to identify it, how to link into wider processes, and also where there is action taking place bilaterally that's problematic, which JETP's Just Energy Transition Partnerships is one example of that. You know, some of those are doing things like making the debt crisis worse for countries in the global south, or like they are on conditions where they create debt. And we're saying that is not necessarily the kind of action and support that is actually aligned with the commitments under Paris. So the action and support function will really bring justice to the center there. And then the final piece is on knowledge generation, as I mentioned, really like crossing, like bringing together the knowledge and identifying where we need new knowledge. Next slide, please. I'm coming to the end, I promise. So what's the timeline of this? That's one of the questions we've had a lot. Like, what are you proposing? If they say yes, if the nations come together and say, yeah, we'll launch the BAM. So we're saying that by the end of COP20, gosh, that was a long time ago, COP30 in Brazil, we want parties to agree to kick off and launch the BAM, and kicking off the action, thank you so much, the action and support component, because that is an area where we already have some work, and that's an area that is going to take a long time to really pass out because of its connectedness to so many things. And then the second, so identifying there, like who are the stakeholders in that, and we're saying this is definitely broader than the elite policymakers space. So we're saying this component, in fact, all of the components have to involve parties, multilateral agencies, interested agencies, and representatives of people, constituencies, and wider civil society. So we are actually saying, which I didn't mention earlier, that we really want the BAM to have official spaces, seats for civil society, and representatives of different constituencies, so that we're not closed out of the processes, which often happens once decisions are taken. And then the second thing we want them to agree to launch is the Global Hub of Practitioners. And that's really bringing together stakeholders, yourselves included, and others who are already doing this work and want to do more of this work. So that's already quite a lot to launch. And then in 2026, by the end of the COP, which is going to be in Australia or Turkey, we'll find out soon, we want there to be an agreement on strengthening the Just Transition Work Programme. So it responds to the function on knowledge sharing, basically. So the bit on pulling together the knowledge, like how will that best be disseminated? How do nations want to engage with it and others? And then by COP32, which I'm not actually sure where that is set to be, an agreement on the modalities of the coordination entity. The coordination entity is the most sensitive in some ways, because I think nations they worry that, there's this constant thing that comes up in the negotiations around countries wanting to do things within their national context, right? Like according to national circumstances. And so there can be fear about coordination mechanisms based on that. Like, is this going to tell us what we should do in our own context? That's not the intention. The intention is more to engender and encourage sustainable, positive, just transition action. So we need more time to really like crowdsource thinking about what that might look like. But that's basically the timeline. And if you just jump to the next slide, we do have a discussion paper which just released this week, and we will have an FAQ coming out soon as well, and a diagram which kind of shows what this is all about. For anyone who's engaging with COP, we'll be there, very active. So please feel free to get in touch, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Amira. We appreciate the space and the diverse group of people that you work with. That's all very inspiring, and we hope that you can meet our GAIA delegation at COP30, which for sure will join your efforts on ground. We wish you all the success and the positive outcome at COP. Up next, we have Severino Lima, president of the International Alliance of Waste Pickers. Severino, could you tell us about the role of waste pickers in climate change mitigation and what you hope to see at COP30?
Ok,
The floor
obrigado,
is yours.
Mariel. Uma vez mais, bom dia a todos e todas. Parabéns, Lucia. Parabéns pela jornada, parabéns pelo aniversário. Bom, pessoal, falar de todos esses temas é um pouco, né, para nós que fazemos parte aí da base, participamos de fato, né, fazemos economia solidária, lutamos por justiça climática, circularidade, e estamos em pleno processo de um ano e meio de uma presidência da Aliança Internacional exercida por catadores, né? Para ter um pouco de contexto, nós estamos nesse momento aqui no Canadá, participando do encontro norte-americano de catadores e catadoras aqui em Vancouver. É muito interessante quando a gente cruza faz os intercâmbios de experiência, né, para poder tentar adaptar um modelo que funcione, né, desde o sul global, o norte global, desde norte global para o sul global. E a gente sabe que tem algumas dificuldades que, às vezes, culturais, políticas, não permitem muito essas convergências. Mas é uma coisa que é muito importante, é o empoderamento das lideranças de catadores, né, em todos os continentes, para que eles se tornem a própria voz, né, de luta e de transferência de informação do que é o seu trabalho, do que é a sua atividade para esses espaços, né, no qual agradeço imensamente a oportunidade de estar mais uma vez falando em nome de 40 milhões de catadores do mundo, e isso é que é o importante, né, criar essa sinergia para que os líderes e liderescas, os líderes e líderes, mulheres e catadoras do mundo possam estar mais presentes, tanto na construção desses aspectos, né, de sistemas importantes, como justiça climática, circularidade, economia circular, e quanto também em processo de transformação para que eh, os atores não reconheçam, né? Isso aqui escutando vocês falarem de COP e a gente escuta que para a gente aqui no Brasil, lá no Brasil, não está tão fácil fazer a participação, né? Eu tenho vários catadores de Belém que estavam muito empolgados para participar na COP, para ir para a Green Zone, Blue Zone, e a gente está encontrando realmente dificuldade de fazer o credenciamento de nossos companheiros. Estamos aguardando aí a posição do governo brasileiro, uma vez que eu questionei, mandei uma lista de 20 catadores e catadoras do Brasil, né? Sem contar os catadores da Aliança Internacional que estão indo, para poder a gente ter. Primeiro que eu já estou muito feliz, né? Já temos 5 credenciados com apoio de organizações e vamos ter mais 3 agora com a GAIA, ou seja, vamos ter no mínimo 7 catadores credenciados para participação na COP, e isso é importante porque eu lembro que o ano passado só estava eu e a Solidade, que é a companheira vozeira do Tratado Internacional, em Azerbaijão. Então, eu já estou muito feliz por saber que, além de ser do meu país, essa é uma conquista muito importante ter mais catadores participando dentro da COP. Perdemos um aspecto muito importante, que foi que a gente lutou desde o começo de ter os catadores contratados dentro da Green Zone e Blue Zone para fazer, de fato, o gerenciamento dos resíduos pós-consumo da COP. Mas, infelizmente, tem a discussão do capital, a empresa contratada internacional, aí vem os aspectos políticos, e como eu não moro em Belém, eu moro em Natal e estou nessa função da Aliança Internacional desde o ano passado, não tive a oportunidade de fazer mais questionamentos desse corpo lá de secretaria da COP. Para quem não sabe, Belém passou também agora pela transição municipal. O prefeito anterior, a gente tinha uma relação mais conjunta e a incidência seria maior, né? O governo atual recém assume e a gente ainda não conseguiu nenhuma articulação forte como deveria com o prefeito local. Você pode passar a apresentação, Maria? Bom, eu não posso falar do trabalho dos catadores, das atividades, das incidências dos catadores sem não fazer um recorrido histórico, né, do trabalho dos catadores no mundo, né? A gente tem aí o aspecto de organização dos catadores a nível da América Latina. Começamos com 3 países na América Latina: Brasil, Chile e Colômbia, e hoje já somos mais de 14 catadores. Enquanto eu estou aqui apresentando para vocês, está acontecendo agora a reunião da Rede LAC com se apresenta ali 12 países discutindo plano de investimento, participação na COP, participação na Expo Catadores, que é o maior evento de catadores do mundo, porque é uma feira que reúne mais de 3.000 catadores, lógico, a grande maioria brasileiros, mas tem muitos internacionais, e então é assim que a gente conseguiu constituir a parte de organização e empoderamento e representatividade dos catadores a partir dessa visão da América Latina. Pode passar? Hoje há uma estimativa de 4 milhões de catadores na América Latina, né? Esses eram dados do BID, né? Dados do BID, do Banco Mundial, que a gente trabalha com esses dados a partir do momento em que a gente está processando, catalogando os afiliados e nossas afiliadas no mundo. Isso é um pouco do aspecto de participação em termos de continente de catadores na Aliança Internacional. Hoje nós temos já 58 países, né? Tivemos recentemente o encontro da Ásia, que eu não pude participar por agenda, mas acabamos de sair há 3 semanas atrás do encontro africano. Tivemos 14 países da África. Isso é muito importante porque dá uma dimensão política e geográfica do poder que os catadores têm, né, em termos de representatividade. A gente está chegando a um cálculo aí e vamos divulgar brevemente, possivelmente na COP, quantas toneladas geral no mundo de reciclagem de material que é utilizado pós-consumo, que passa pela mão dos catadores, desde um lixão aqui no Brasil, lá no Brasil, desde o lixão de Accra, em Gana, que tivemos lá recentemente, desde os processos mecânicos que temos já também, muito empreendimento que tem o processo mecânico de separação. Como eu estava comentando com vocês, né, as diferenças culturais e de processo da América Latina para aqui, para a América do Norte, é extremamente impactante. Aqui as plantas, né, nós visitamos já Suriname, Le Valoris, aqui o projeto Business em Canadá, e aqui o processo eles têm que deixar as latas e as embalagens de plástico inteira. Cara, tira um volume de espaço fenomenal, é louco. É um sistema que não funcionaria com certeza na América Latina. Mas tem uns aspectos de que, se a gente for fazer a base de cálculo do que é o EPR aqui na América do Norte e o que a gente vende de material reciclável no peso na América Latina, o preço está de 6 para 2. É US$ 6 um quilo, equivale a 1 quilo de lata de alumínio, e é US$ 2 que se paga na América Latina. Ou seja, tem umas vantagens e desvantagens que a gente tem que criar um processo um dia de como convergir para um pagamento justo por esse serviço que os trabalhadores, catadores e catadoras executam no mundo. Pode passar? Aqui são alguns fóruns importantíssimos que assumimos a partir deste ano, em termos de participação, quer dizer, um deles, o Latitude R, é um programa que nós temos na América Latina já há vários anos, né? Já no sexto, sétimo ano, onde a gente senta com essas empresas, com essas organizações de igual para igual para discutir investimento. E, felizmente, no começo, as organizações que administram esses recursos, geralmente, elas que definem o que fazer, né? Nós tínhamos um poder só de aprovar ou não aprovar, mas de construir o plano de trabalho, de decidir o que vai fazer com o recurso. Era muito raro a gente ter isso. Hoje, a partir dessa experiência da América Latina, a gente tem tido maior incidência na decisão. Por exemplo, nós trabalhamos recentemente, concluindo agora um projeto com apoio da nossa aliada, o IEGO, com recursos da Fundação Ford, e aí a Aliança Internacional de Catadores, tivemos o nosso planejamento com os recursos finais que teriam, e aí definimos entre os continentes, os conselhos, como que distribuiríamos esse recurso, e é muito importante frisar aqui no começo, como tinha mais recurso para a América Latina, nós abrimos mão de parte do recurso para a África, que foi um continente que foi menos atendido por parte do recurso. Então, por aí vocês já percebem que a democracia, o reconhecimento, né, e o respeito pelas culturas e pela dificuldade que cada continente está, já é bem respeitado. Pode passar. Assim, aí tem o Fair Circularity, que participa também outras empresas aí ligadas, e o outro grupo. Aqui é a nossa diretoria, nosso Office Bars, né? Os executivos diretores da aliança. Sou eu, presidente da América Latina, a Sushila Sebo, que é da Ásia, e a Madi Coena, que é da África, vive em Cape Town. A Sushila vive na Índia. Pode passar? Só um outro comentário na questão das representatividades, é importante, porque são os três continentes maiores em termos de representatividade, tanto de afiliadas quanto de membros afiliados, e cada um no seu nível de organização como está, né? E aí todo mundo trabalhando para aumentar mais o nível de participação e empoderamento desses líderes catadores e catadoras dos continentes. Mas, lógico, também transferindo conhecimento, como estou fazendo aqui na América do Norte e como vamos fazer também em Bruxelas, que vai ser o encontro europeu no dia 29 e 30, que vai ser feito em Bruxelas. Aqui são os níveis de participação dos catadores na discussão do Tratado Intergovernamental contra a Poluição Plástica, né? Nós temos participação em todos os INCs, né? Em todos os eventos do INC, e, ademais disso, algumas reuniões diretamente com a UNEP. Temos uma relação muito, muito boa com a diretora executiva, com a secretária executiva, que são a Joti e a Inge Anderson. Tivemos também com o nosso secretário, né, para a discussão, que é o Vaias, o embaixador Vaias, e isso repercutiu muito nas relações de governo em termos diplomáticos, né? A gente aproveitou que no Brasil as relações com o presidente Lula são muito próximas, Lula tem um carinho e uma atenção e um respeito grande pelos trabalhos dos catadores. Nós fazemos um programa, um evento que se chama Natal dos Catadores com o presidente da República já desde o primeiro mandato de Lula. Isso já vai há quase 20 anos. E aí nós temos, né, a partir de várias ações, participado de várias ações de COP, desde a COP de Copenhague. Eu tenho uma facilidade tremenda de relacionar com o corpo diplomático. Aí nós temos vice-ministros, temos o embaixador. Aí no Quênia está a figura do embaixador Silvio Almeida, que abriu literalmente as portas da embaixada na sessão do INC no Quênia. Foi muito importante porque representou um marco de que os catadores podem contar também com o governo brasileiro em qualquer parte do mundo, se tem uma embaixada, de procurar, de pedir informação sobre o trabalho que o governo brasileiro faz com os catadores. E abriu essa oportunidade que o congresso, o encontro europeu vai ser feito na embaixada, na sede do Brasil, em Bruxelas. Pode passar, por favor? Aí, mais um momento importante em que a gente conseguiu, com muita luta, conversar com a delegação, ao corpo diplomático da Rússia. Isso foi no INC de Ottawa, e a gente estava com muita dificuldade, porque sempre que a gente discute a participação no INC, a gente quer a garantia de que o nome catador de material reciclável, ou speakers, como falamos em inglês, esteja no texto, e aí a gente está garantindo isso. Lógico, a gente quer mais coisas, a gente quer participação na decisão sobre financiamento, a gente quer a construção de um mecanismo justo para pagamento pelos créditos gerados a partir da reciclagem, da mitigação de gases de efeito estufa, mas a ideia é que a gente tem esse nível de poder de sempre que constitui um INC, um dia, 2 dias assim que abre, o secretariado e a diretoria da UNEP senta com os catadores para que escutem as nossas reivindicações. Pode passar, por favor? Lógico que tudo isso não se dá só pela base diplomática, nós temos. Volta um pouquinho na outra. Isso não passa só pela parte diplomática, parte também dos eventos, como a gente participa, e das relações interorganizações. No caso, temos uma relação muito próxima dos indígenas na discussão do Tratado Internacional de Plástico. A gente sente falta dessa relação nas discussões de COP, por exemplo. Agora mesmo, a COP de Belém, eu que estou forçando para que a coordenação dos indígenas, que são várias, não são tão consolidadas como na América do Norte, para que a gente possa sentar e construir juntos uma pauta, né? Porque a Amazônia tem vários rios, né? E aí tem os resíduos, e aí a gente está aí aproveitando esse momento da COP, na cúpula dos povos, para se acercar, para se estar mais próximo, né, dessa bandeira entre catadores e catadoras. Pode passar? Pode passar. Next, please. E sempre vamos ter desafios, né? Apesar do papel fundamental dos escaladores de base que enfrentam sérios desafios, condições precárias de trabalho em muitas situações. Como eu dizia, eu tenho desde catadores que estão trabalhando numa planta, um programa de coleta seletiva, sendo remunerado pela municipalidade, a catadores que estão na rua, a catadores que estão no lixão, né? Então, a gente luta muito para que esses desafios possam ter sinergia para que o desafio de um continente ajude o outro, né? E cada desafio tem a questão da barreira cultural. Por exemplo, na América Latina, no Brasil, nós discutimos a questão do fechamento dos lixões normalmente. Fechar um lixão a céu aberto, que tem 100 pessoas, 200 pessoas trabalhando, mas que a gente feche com dignidade, porque existe a política pública no Brasil que reconhece e obriga que o município, quando for fechar um lixão, gere trabalho, emprego e renda, oportunidade para os catadores. Já em outros continentes, não. Então a gente não tem a mesma, não pode fazer o mesmo discurso. Chegar no lixão de Acre com 700 pessoas trabalhando e dizer que é uma forma que tem que tem que acabar, não pode. Você tem que criar mecanismos para que o poder público entenda a importância do trabalho do catador, porque até às vezes o prefeito de alguma região, de algum país, ele acha que está fazendo muito bem manter os catadores ali trabalhando. Ah, eu estou gerando emprego, não está me dando problema, mas aí esquece do aspecto dos direitos humanos, da questão ambiental, né, da insalubridade que é ter um trabalhador dentro de um lixão. Pode passar? Hum. Bom, e a gente segue trabalhando, né? Tivemos aí, né, junto ao INC de Busan. Infelizmente, a gente queria fechar com chave de ouro e uma maior representatividade de catadores que tivemos em Genebra, mas a própria discussão não chegou a uma conclusão. Trabalhamos com apoio da equipe técnica de staff da Aliança Internacional, o qual eu faço deferência, né? Uma equipe que continuou de um processo que vem de uma estrutura anterior até essa nova presidência e que é quem dá o suporte técnico para a nossa fala, né? O importante é frisar de que a Soledade Meia, que é a nossa vozeira para o Tratado Internacional, e eu que cuido muito das relações de tratado sobre a participação na COP, a gente tem todo um suporte técnico por trás, tanto de nossos países como desse staff tremendo que é os técnicos de apoio da Aliança Internacional. Temos coordenadores regionais em todos os continentes, com exceção da Europa, que estamos em processo de negociação, temos oficial de advocacy, temos oficial de comunicação, temos oficial de finanças, temos uma contabilidade cumprindo com seus rígidos processos de auditoria e temos um secretariado coerente com a pauta definida por nós catadores durante a nossa primeira Assembleia Internacional, que foi em maio do ano passado na Argentina. Pode passar? Next, please. Para que os catadores cumpram o seu papel, né, que é como última fronteira e uma eficaz fronteira contra a contaminação, né, de resíduos para o ambiente. A gente fala muito do plástico, mas tudo que não é destinado adequadamente é um resíduo e ele gera impacto. Pode ser que o papelão não gere tanto impacto como o plástico, mas se você não coletar o papelão e destinar novamente para reuso, né, na sua circularidade, vai ter que plantar mais árvores loucas, né, que são essas árvores que planta para tirar papel, que são árvores híbridas, ou então vai ter que desflorestar mais o nosso meio ambiente para poder produzir a tal da celulose. Então, precisando de melhores condições de trabalho, prestações sociais, capacitação para melhorar o trabalho, é uma construção que, como eu falei, tem a questão da linguagem, né? Eu, pelo trabalho feito na América Latina, consigo dominar bem o espanhol, agora já estou migrando para o inglês, porque é uma das línguas mais faladas na África e mais fácil de dialogar com os tomadores de decisões, com os políticos, né, com as empresas, com os CEOs de grandes empresas que têm a sua responsabilidade, que muitas vezes não, não respondem à sua responsabilidade para a destinação adequada dos seus envases pós-consumo. E uma coisa que é muito importante para o segmento e para essa diretoria, para essa presidência da aliança, é o financiamento, né? Estamos buscando diretamente recursos de outras fontes, tentando renovar uma vez mais projetos da Fundação Ford, renovando as alianças com organizações como a própria GAIA, a Viego, a Vinda Foundation, que é uma outra organização, Fundação Ellen MacArthur. Então, nós estamos aí de coração aberto para investidores, para financiadores e para pessoas que reconhecem, organizações que reconhecem a importância do trabalho dos catadores para o meio ambiente. Pode ir. Next, please. Aí é um emblemático momento em que nós catadores estávamos na embaixada do Quênia, estávamos na embaixada do Quênia, né, onde os catadores estavam em sua atividade de coleta e convidamos eles e prontamente vieram e o embaixador abriu as portas da embaixada brasileira, como diz, olha, nós reconhecemos o trabalho dos catadores, foi muito importante. Pode passar? Next, please. Bom, a gente chega hoje no MacPay. MacPay é um estudo que estamos empreendendo com apoio de organizações como a Avina e como a Global Methane Hub, para implementar um sistema de quantificação do custo de abatimento de gases de efeito estufa na reciclagem e nos orgânicos. Nós estamos aí em processo de apresentar durante a COP30, já temos 3 espaços, depois a gente vai estar aí divulgando as ações do movimento da Aliança Internacional de Catadores dentro da COP30. Primeiramente, dizer que no dia 9, das 9 às 17 horas, nós vamos ter a nossa pré-COP, que vai ser na Concaves, a gente vai divulgar também, e nós estamos determinando, quanto à Aliança Internacional, que a Concaves vai ser a sede internacional dos catadores durante o período da COP. Então, vamos fazer algumas atividades, receber visitas, temos aí uma parceria muito grande com o Instituto Polis, por meio da GAIA, onde vai ter o biodigestor para tratamento de todos os resíduos orgânicos, pelo menos isso conseguimos aí com esse impacto bastante importante do Global Methane Hub e do Polis, de receber todo o orgânico para ser tratado, vai ser aí. Então, assim, quem tiver pela COP pode nos visitar, faz contato. Nós estamos também preparando para que, antes do final da COP, com a volta do presidente Lula para a COP, porque geralmente os presidentes vão na abertura e vão ao final, a gente já protocolou um convite do presidente Lula para visitar a planta da Concaves e ver o que a gente fez de fato com aquele material, com aquele resíduo gerado durante a COP em Belém. Isso é muito importante, porque demonstra para os cientistas, para as altas autoridades, para os high levels, né? Inclusive para os nossos amigos champions, nós temos uma relação muito boa com o Daniel Shepard, de Brasil, e com o Gonzalo Munhoz, do Chile, que são amigaços nossos e estão aí nos ajudando, para que possam visitar também e ver que o trabalho dos catadores, ele não pode ser só reconhecido, ele tem que ser apoiado e pago por esse serviço. E a nossa luta é constante, né? Buscando oportunidades. E hoje o papel dessa presidência, desse corpo de staff da Aliança Internacional, é aproveitar todos os espaços como esse para apresentar as nossas propostas, para divergir quando tivermos que divergir com mecanismos muito grandes como VERRAs, né? Essas organizações internacionais que, na verdade, estão mais interessados em administrar os recursos de fundos do que empoderar os trabalhadores, que é isso que a gente se preocupa muito quando se fala de financiamento. Não mais, deixo por aqui. Muito obrigado a todos e todas e fico à disposição para qualquer outro esclarecimento. Uma vez mais, parabenizar a Lucia pelo seu estudo, que todos aqui fizeram parte. Muito obrigado.
Thank you so much, Mirto. Obrigada, Severino. And it's always inspiring to see with speakers organizing, standing in solidarity, and leading real change on ground. Your work reminds us of how essential social justice is to achieving climate justice. We are behind schedule on our time, and just a kind reminder to our speakers to stick to the allocated time so that we can run through all our sessions today. Thank you. Up next, I'll hand it over to our very own Marielle Viela from GAIA, who will share GAIA's take on COP30 agenda and what's next to watch for in the waste meeting discussion. Marielle, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm just going to deep dive a bit more into what we can expect at COP30 when it comes to waste and climate. And I'm going to run through the agenda because I want to make sure that we have time for our speakers later for Lucia and Ceci. So just very brief highlights of the COP30 agenda. First, as we heard, Dr. Bharat, the COP30 presidency, is working on announcements to increase ambition on waste methane. And so we'll see what they have to present at COP. That's going to be quite exciting. Second, the UNFCCC Mitigation Working Group, in September, they held the sixth dialogue and focused it on waste and circular economy. That was a 2-day dialogue where governments got together to think about what actionable solutions, what specific concrete actions they could bring to the negotiations at COP30, and what language would they have there for the decision-making process of the final outcome. Neil Tangri, from our team, was there as a panelist. EcoJustice Ethiopia, one of our members in Ethiopia, was there as well. We're waiting now for the executive summary from the sixth dialogue that will be submitted to COP30, and we'll see if the work program on mitigation takes up any further language on waste. Then, of course, we're all waiting for the NDCs to come up, and many have submitted, still many have not yet submitted, and we're watching how many of them are integrating waste methane strategies and how much alignment there is with environmental justice principles. We have an NDC tracker that we're launching next week, where we've analyzed some of these NDCs, and we'll be updating as we see more NDCs. We see a lot of momentum. We just heard 33 countries in Latin America that have come up with a shared vision to cut methane from waste with all these goals. So there is momentum, there are pledges, but how much this is translated into actual climate plans, into actual implementation of the kind of solutions we want to see. Let's see what we can make happen at COP30 on that front. Of course, finance is going to be a hot topic as every COP. This is a ongoing demand, and will there be new commitments that can support our agenda? Belém can be a turning point because it's the COP of implementation, but will it be the COP of justice? We will see. We will see how much it advances on climate justice and finance. We will be bringing case studies of zero waste implementation models where we've done business models of assessment and highlighting how community-driven and waste speaker-led and financially sustainable models can really be climate and social the most beneficial for all. And these case studies are in Buenos Aires, Accra, and Quezon City. Okay, in that front, actually, like one big initiative that we will be watching is the Low Methane Partnership. We, as GAIA, we are partners of the Low Methane Partnership. It was launched at COP28. It's an alliance of organizations and institutions and countries wanting to accelerate the delivery of the Global Methane Pledge. It's aiming to mobilize finance and focus in specific jurisdictions. And as GAIA, we're living in a number of jurisdictions across the Global South, in some of them together with C40. You can see in the next slide. And in all of this. And so at COP30, we will be bringing the updates of the work that's been happening on the ground in all of these cities with representatives from the organizations on the ground that are living on this work. And yes, next, please. Waste speakers, of course, will take a center stage at COP30. Not only because this is the Just Transition COP, this is because the Movimiento de Catadores is so important in Brazil, and because the Red Lacre, the National Alliance of Waste Speakers in Latin America, is also so powerful. So this is really a big opportunity for the profile of waste speakers to raise and to be recognized with all the credit it deserves as climate heroes that they are. We'll be joining the Belém Action Mechanism policy campaigns that Amiera was telling us about. We've been also working with the International Alliance of Waste Speakers on technical guidance for waste speaker integration, and we'll definitely bring that expertise into our discussions. And in the pictures, just to remind us that also an important context factor is how much Lula is close to waste speakers, and it's worth remembering that it was Aline from Brasilia that gave the presidential ban to Lula when he was invested president. So our delegation is gonna be bring representatives from all these countries from across the world, some yet to be confirmed, a diversity of zero waste implementers, city officials, waste speaker cooperative representatives in connection with our donors and UN institutions. And so we bring the voices of the implementers, of the organizations on the ground, to be talking about how climate action is happening already, and what are the obstacles and what are the needs that we have to make it at scale and further and beyond. Just to highlight some of the events that we have 2 official side events on finance and on just transition. We're going to be one of the hotspots at COP30 is going to be the Super Pollutants Pavilion, where we're going to have several side events on finance, just transition, and food loss and waste. We also got approvals for the Cryosphere Pavilion, and we're pursuing events at national pavilions in Bangladesh, Tanzania, and Brazil. And amongst other key events, we're going to have the GMP Ministerial, of course, and there's talks about the non-CO2 summit too, which we'll see where we go. We're very excited. This is the first COP in many COPs. We're going to have a People Summit, and I think the last one was in Glasgow. So it's good news that this time social movements are going to be able to meet, discuss, engage, march, etc., etc. This is going from the 12th to the 16th. Our colleague Alejandra Parra is engaged in this process, and yeah, and we will be there as well, contributing to the discussions. And the last thing is the composting plant that's going to be set up, that's being set up in Belém, that's going to be processing the organic waste. And that, yeah, there's going to be an inauguration on the 9th of November. So this is funded by the Global Methane Hub. It's going to be processing the organic waste from COP and prioritizing the organic waste collected by the waste speakers of Belém. So this is great news, very excited for that. And so see you there. That's all from me. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Marielle, for that wrap up. Looks like you've got a very busy COP30 ahead, and I'm sure the GAIA delegation will make a real impact on ground. Wishing you all the best. Moving on to our next speaker, and she's a longtime ally of GAIA Alliance and someone who was instrumental in making the very first delegations of waste speakers at the UNFCCC happen. Please welcome Lucia Fernandez. We know today is your birthday, Lucia, which makes us feel even more special and honored that you're dedicating your time to us and you are having such an important event on an important day of your life. Happy birthday, Lucia, and thank you so much for presenting your work on conflicts in the waste sector. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Alma. I think it's the first time in my life I had so many birthday wishes from people I never met in person. So it's very, very unique. And I'm very grateful for the invitation. When Marielle invited us, between the 3 editors, I said, I will do it, I will do it. It's a perfect way of celebrating my birthday. So it's not an effort, it's really a celebration, and especially after listening to all of you and the great work you are doing, it's more than presents. It's really inspiring. I will try to be brief because the book is already available, and I am happy to share with you free copies now that one of the editors is not afraid of the publisher, which I am. I am very afraid of publishers, but Federico is not, and he said, that's fine, I just share the PDF. So contested weight has been around me and many others for like more than 12 years, kind of. It has been a long process, and we are very happy that in the past month it's been actually here with us. I have the copy here for you to see, and because I want to read something later. So we have a foreword by Nora Padilla. Nora Padilla has been a long-standing leader from Colombia. She was at the prize in 2013, I think in 2012 in San Francisco, where Christy and GAIA was very instrumental and supportive of her environmental prize. And there are cases from around the world, and we also include at the end the last resolution of just transition for waste pickers, that it's important for CAN purpose and not only, and of course the constitution where now Severino is the president of the alliance. So we try to also incorporate the conflict and some hope at the end that it's possible to do things differently. Next one, please. So we have the next one. Okay. So the book has been a result of a strong collaboration between the Universidad de Barcelona, where Joan Martínez Alié, some of you may know him. He wrote a book and he developed this concept many years ago about the environmentalism of the poor, how the poor of the world are the real environmental agents, because for obvious reasons, they cannot pollute as someone that lives in the US or in Europe are polluting. So he started developing this idea, and I think through his great work on environmental justice, it was possible to develop the atlas. There is an atlas, the Environmental Justice Atlas, and it was through the collaboration with Federico de Maria that we start mapping specifically the conflicts around waste that involve waste pickers. There are many conflicts around waste and waste from different types and colors. But it was around 2012 that we said, okay, what if we start mapping them out? And with a particular focus on the global south. This has recently changed, and I think the reason that Severino is now in North America and is going to Europe is because we have been seeing a lot of waste pickers now in the global north as well. So it would be very interesting to map out the north, because it's getting a very interesting and also conflictual space for them. So the two main questions is like, how are they resisting the marginalization and the exclusion that we've seen from waste systems around the global south? The next one. And then the other collaboration was with the waste pickers as part of the Global Alliance process. And this picture is a very old one, it's from 2012, but it was the first time when many cities around the world, many waste pickers from different cities around the world get together to discuss waste management. I think some GAIA friends were there, Neil, I'm not sure, Mariel, if you were there, but there were many supporters and waste pickers that try to understand and design. You can see the design that was made from the Manila city, how the systems are working and how are they being affected by them. And that was the kind of the baseline for the book. Like when you get the experience from workers on the ground and their own suffering / resistance or community organizing with a university like the Barcelona, who has this environmental justice strong commitment and groups. And I think these two together was that makes the book possible. And then of course, a lot of supporters and contributors from GAIA, from communities that are organized around incineration. And that was what makes the possibility of, next one, of mapping those cases out. These are like 70, around 70 cases that are part of the book. You will see that Latin America has a lot, and Africa as well. There are many incineration menace and threats and privatization patterns across the global south, because it is where developing practice or modernization of waste management it takes place. Of course, it's part of colonialism and waste colonialism that GAIA has been very active with Fernanda Solis on this topic. It's about importing from the north what we know it's not working in the south, among different reasons, for financial budget implications, but also for the people who live from those wastes. So we said waste pickers are under threat. Next one. And therefore, these are the four things I want to emphasize, and no more than that. But it's like, what is this recycling paradox? It's like, waste pickers contribute to circular economies. They are contributing to being the environmentalists of the poor, but there are new policies around waste management that tends to privatize, to incinerate, and those policies undermine their livelihood. So why they cannot be inclusive circular economies or popular circular economies, as the Argentinian says, as part of a new paradigm of handling waste in a positive and inclusive way. So the theoretical framework that is used in the introduction of the book is about ecological economics and political ecology. This is the work done mostly and developed by De Maria, Alier, and Daniel Vico, who is the other editor. So how we can understand urban waste as a metabolic flow, how we understand that within cities, what's happening with our waste, it's part of a metabolism unit. And within it, there are so many power, justice, and issues that came on how we are handling these waste and who is in charge of handling these waste. So the key features that are on the introduction are around dispossession, this concept that Melanie Sampson, in her PhD thesis many years ago, she studied the Soweto landfill in South Africa, and she was the first one trying to get this Marxist concept of dispossession into waste, so dispossession of the waste that affect waste pickers who are working out of the same waste for decades, and how that changed the waste in a commodity, because it was something that has no value before, but when we start dispossessing those who are gaining value out of it, it's when these economic changes start happening in the same object. There is an expression from a waste picker from Brazil that Severino and I know, Alex, who used to say, we were sitting over a pile of gold, but we were not aware of it. There is something about the waste becoming gold, and those who were sitting in that pile were not totally understanding what was happening with the same material that they were handling until these new policies came on board and start dismantling spontaneous system, as we say in French, or informal systems, as the Anglophones like to say. And how all of that is affected by state and corporate alliance, like this public-private, but it's mostly private with public support systems that make subsidies to incineration, to privatization, and how all of those mechanisms end up affecting waste pickers in a negative way by dispossessing them from the materials. So we end up saying in the introduction that we can call this kind of a waste capitalism regime, like waste is capital is something that I keep saying in Spanish, like the notion that with all of us producing so much waste and that waste becoming a commodity, it creates some value that develops this kind of global waste regime where the waste is transformed into a source of profit. And the question about who is the owner of that profit, it's something that it's part of some of our organizing practice motto. Is like, who can get the profit out of that material? Is it something that we can get back to the communities? If it's something that we can decentralize through local organizing, or if it's something that it will sustain the practice of privatization and enclosure that are done at the expense of the informal recyclists. The next one. So the book has very powerful and nice reviews, mostly from academics. There are reviews from people from some universities who have read the pre-review. And I like this one because I think even though he hasn't been like an environmental activist on our like process, you know, he's the author of Garbage Wars, which is a very nice book that was like 20 years ago. And he said something that the waste pickers say themselves for a while. It's like, these are the garbage wars of the 21st century. and there will be no peace until the waste pickers have prevailed. And I like the fact that he talked about garbage wars, because I think it's part of what I just said about waste capitalism or waste as capital. It definitely leads you towards some sort of war of conflict, because you end up disputing and fighting for the same source of disposable materials or recyclable materials in a particular context. And I have been told by Marielle that we should be also, in addition to be critical and explaining the complexity of this system, to also bring some hope that can let us understand that there is a possibility of resistance and there is a possibility of community organizing. And some of, it's at the very beginning of the book, these two stories, the one from Cotonou, Benin, and the one from Egypt, are really nice ones, not just because they came from the very bottom up, but because in the case of Cotonou, and I have the book here, in the case of Cotonou, they were in a crisis, they were in a wise crisis. And in 2016, there was an explosion at the dam site where 18 people died and 90 people were injured. The tons of waste that the city was produced were around 800, and only 1,000 were in a sanitary landfill. So can you imagine there were like more than 70% of the waste was not properly handled. And the paradox was that those who were at the landfill end up in this kind of explosion 10 years ago, that as a result, you have a lot of people that lives nearby that landfill who pass away. But there was a group of women called the Association des Femmes Récupératrices de Benin. It was a long-standing group. It was actually created many years ago. That group, this group of women were called the Gohotos, and I don't know how to pronounce it in the local language in Fon, but Gohotos means those who are buying empty bottles. And it was because they were shouting in the street, Gohoto Gulu, empty bottles, buyers are here. It was the cry that they were doing in the street for people to give them the empty bottles. And they buy 70 different types of glass and plastic bottles, mostly from poor people, and seem to continually include more waste pickers in their activities. This membership-based organization has a permanent bureau now. They have monthly meetings, and they have more than 1,000 members, of whom about 400 were bottle collectors. They are collecting the bottles and they keep calling the gobetos. About 70% of the population of Cotonou is reported to benefit from the informal service. If we think that despite this obstacle, these female waste pickers report that the association has helped them to build a community and access self-help groups to reduce their vulnerability, because they still don't have social protection from the government, they still don't have recognition, they are not in a great situation, but they were able to organize locally to try to provide a solution to a waste crisis in the city that is not part of what has been offered by the World Bank in 2017 to have a plan to improve collections and infrastructure. So, you know, in the same place, you can have still this kind of very private-oriented modernization of the system, while at the same time you have a community-led organizing approach that can leads you towards these groups. And then Serino can correct me, but I think this Benin group of women have then become affiliates to International Alliance of Waste Pickers some years later. So that was one of the cases I want to highlight, because it's one that we don't know them very much. The Sabalins in Egypt, which is the one that follows, they are the ones who collect most waste, even than the corporate of waste management that has been imported in the city. And they are still there, they are still surviving, and they are still in charge of most of the waste. Next, please. I think we still have 1 more minute. Yeah. And the most important, of course, is not just to look at what's happening in one city, but these 70 cities has many cases of great resistance and organizing experience. And I think the most important is something that has already been said by the president of the Alliance, but is that the fight of the waste pickers is for recognition, for access to materials, for labor rights, and of course for environmental justice. And I think this is our most strong intersection. It has been the strongest intersection between the labor movement and the environmental rights movement. I think through community-based organizing and waste picker resistance, I think we have still a lot of work to do. And I'm very glad that you are thinking and working together towards the COP30 as one of many of those spaces of fight and resistance to come. So thank you very much.
This is so interesting, Lucia. Thanks a lot for presenting your book. It really reminds us of the drivers behind these conflicts, like waste management privatization, and it's a real example of the recycling paradox. Waste pickers are doing crucial work for sustainability, but at the same time, they are often excluded and undervalued. Still, hearing these stories also shows the strength, resilience, and leadership of waste pickers and why supporting them is so important for a just and sustainable future. Thank you so much, Lucia. We are already over time, so kindly bear with us for a few more minutes. And next, we have Cecilia Allen, who is the Zero Waste Cities Program Lead, and she will guide us through the latest resources and technical guidance for policymakers and implementers, tools that are key for cutting the waste methane while promoting environmental justice, and also reminding you of your questions in the chat box. Ceci, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ama, and hi, everyone. Very glad to be here. I'm going to be brief because we are over time, but we did want to take the opportunity to share with you some publications that we have recently launched. And the context for this, maybe I don't need to explain it, but as we have all seen and we are experiencing, there is a momentum in which there are many national governments, local governments, international organizations doing their work to reduce methane emissions in the waste sector. And we are seeing lots of commitments, lots of targets, pledges, etc. So, and as we all know, the main source of anthropogenic methane emissions in the waste sector is landfills and disposal sites. So we are trying to do our best in many fronts to make sure that those commitments are translated into practice. And not only that, but also in a way that does not commit livelihoods, global warming in general. So this is one of the areas of work where we are contributing to make sure that the policies, the strategies, the programs that governments implement, that financial institutions support, are oriented towards just systems and systems that really tackle the bottom issue of methane emissions and don't produce trade-offs, etc. So we have launched three of a series of publications. There are more publications to come. And I'm going to go very briefly through each of them, but some of the questions that these publications answer or address are, what are the approaches that governments and cities can take to reduce methane emissions in the waste sectors without creating trade-offs with other climate pollutants? How do different technologies for organic waste management and waste management compare in terms of global warming impact overall? How to address methane emissions in the waste sector without compromising long-term climate goals, livelihoods, community resilience, and justice? What are the differences between different management technologies and techniques? What is the best technology that is more suitable for any given context? So we're trying to address some of these questions with this series of publications. And if we can go to the next slide. Yeah. So I'm going to go through each of them. I don't know if the order, can we go to the next one, please? And the next one? Yeah, this one. So The first that I want to share with you is a publication called Zero Waste as an Effective Climate Strategy, Avoiding Warming Trade-offs from Incineration. So what this publication does is to assess the long-term global warming impacts of 3 waste management strategies. The first one is what we call business as usual, which is basically disposal in landfills, dump sites, with or without landfill gas capture. The second one is incineration, waste to energy incineration. And the third one is a zero waste scenario that includes practices such as source separation, treatment of organics, and recyclables. So these 3 waste management strategies are compared by their long-term global warming impact. And this is done in practical cases of 3 contexts: in Lagos, Nigeria, in Barueri, Brazil, and in Quezon City in the Philippines. So this was done using the suite tool. This is a calculator developed by the EPA, the US EPA, and also the Finite Amplitude Impulse Response Climate Model, or FAIR climate model. So we used these 2 tools to calculate the projected temperature impacts for each of the 3 strategies throughout 2060. So we can see what is the real life, let's say, the global warming impact of these strategies in these 3 cities. So in the 3 cities, the results show that the scenario of zero waste outperforms the other 2 scenarios. This is consistent in all the 3 cities. And the reason that we did this study is because we see that there is a lot of, when there is a lot of focus on methane emissions, one of the things that we're seeing is that there may be an option to go for waste to energy incineration because it's only considering methane emissions, but that means a trade of climate pollutants. So when you look at the overall picture and you look at the actual impacts in global warming, the best scenario in the 3 cases analyzed is zero waste system. So you can get more details in the full report, but it's I think something interesting to understand. Take a look at the big picture and understand which is the best strategy overall in terms of reducing not only methane but also global warming in general. The second publication, if we can go, yes, we can stay here. The second publication, or another publication that we just released, is addressing particularly the situation of landfill closures. We see that there is, in some regions especially, there is a lot of push to not only improve landfills, but also to close dump sites. And so this report analyzes the risks of several options that are often considered when it comes to closing a dump site and mitigating methane emissions. So it looks at the risk of waste to energy incinerations, MBT plants, RDF production systems, and it most importantly addresses what is the situation that is consistently overlooked, which is the situation of the waste pickers who actually work and live in those dump sites, right? So the report includes some recommendations and an analysis of what happens in these processes of dump site closure what scenarios can happen for waste pickers to be included in the next phase of a dump site closure. And it also includes recommendations such as policy recommendations and financial recommendations for better alternatives to be sustainable in the future. And the third publication we released so far, if we can go to the previous slide. Yeah, thank you. So this publication analyzes 6 different organic waste management technologies and techniques. This is composting, vermicomposting, anaerobic digestion, black soldier fly processing, landfill biocovers, and also use of organics as animal feed. And we developed this as a handy tool for any practitioner, any policymaker, any financial institution who wants to understand, what are the differences, what are to basically compare these different technologies and understand what's more suitable for each context. So the publication goes through things such as what is the type of infrastructure needed for each of these techniques at different scales, what are the labor requirements, what are the time frames. It compares of different characteristics of this organic waste management system, so that anyone who wants to implement an organic waste treatment system can understand what options are out there, what are the nuances of each one to make the best decision in their context. So, as I said, these are the three of a series of publications. Sonia, I see you just put the link where you can access these publications. These are all available in both English and Spanish. So yeah, we hope they are useful to you. Feel free to use them, share them widely. And yeah, hopefully they will be useful to really make both the policies, the infrastructure, and also the finance, the financial mechanisms to go to just systems, decentralized systems, community-based systems that are led by waste speakers, and not the systems that brought us here in the first place. So thank you, and back to you, Ama.
This is definitely insightful and very, very good too for all of us. Thank you so much, Ceci. This is excellent work, and it will be useful for a lot of organizations and implementers all over the world. Thank you so much for doing that. And next, today we want to celebrate some great news. I see that in the chat there are no questions yet, so we will rush quickly to our next. Exactly, on our celebration, and then we come back to the questions if we have any after this. So as I mentioned, we'll be having a celebration of some great news from the US, and this week our colleagues are making the first gathering of the cohort for us in the US Methane Reduction and Environmental Justice Regrant program. This program supports community-based organizations reducing methane through zero waste strategies, centering justice and leadership in the communities most affected by pollution and climate change. And GAIA supports these projects from organic waste diversion to landfill advocacy, and cohort partners will also share knowledge, collaboration, and amplify their impact. Ultimately, this initiative is about shifting power and resources to the local level, where the most effective and equitable climate solutions are already taking root. So they have a video, and we are actually going to see that shortly.
Live from New Orleans, this is GAIA's U.S. Methane Reduction and Environmental Justice Regrant cohort, and we're here fighting methane, and we're representing where?
New England! New York!
Jersey! Maryland!
Louisiana!
Michigan! Minnesota!
Colorado!
California!
Go for zero waste!
That was so exciting. No, I wish to be in the room. And now with us, we have the US. We have Denaya from GAIA US Climate Team joining us live. Hello, Denaya. Congratulations for the launch of this cohort. This is amazing. 7 more groups have been regranted to implement projects on waste methane reduction, isn't it? So tell us more about this cohort and what you expect to accomplish.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm happy I was able to hop on just for a quick minute. We are in the middle of our second day of the convening today. As you saw in the video, we just took yesterday, so we wanted to give you all a live hello from our convening. We're doing a two-day in-person convening with our regrantees. Some of them GAIA members that we've been working with for years. Some are folks that we've supported in shutting down their incinerators, and now they have shifted to the parts of their work where they are advancing their zero waste solutions. So we are, through this cohort, we were able to fund 13 different GAIA members across 13 US states. They're all working on different methane emission reduction projects in a variety of different ways. We have some folks doing local community composting programs. There's folks working on state policy, landfill regulations, and things of that sort, working on EPR bills and ensuring things like organics diversion is being implemented. We have some Indigenous folks that are working on ensuring that there is incorporation of traditional ecological knowledge in their methane reduction strategies and in their organics programs, and everything in between. So a lot of different things that peoples are working on. This convening was, as I said, the first time that this cohort has gotten together in person. We launched the cohort at the beginning of this year. So it's always just a good time to be able to connect in real time, in person. We are doing a lot of collaboration, talking about strategy, doing an analysis of the current political climate in the US and how that is impacting how organizations are doing their work and how the political climate is impacting their campaigns. We're talking strategy around all of our methane work. And also just having some fun, having opportunity to build relationships with each other. Today, we are wrapping up our second day of the convening. Jessica, our plastics and petrochemicals program manager, is literally right now doing a session where we are looking at our methane work and how we can build stronger connections along the supply chain. So for folks that work on incinerators or landfills at the disposal end, and how that connects to where we are here in Louisiana, which is the major part of the US where production of plastics happens. So petrochemical refineries and that sort is highly concentrated in Louisiana and New Orleans, where we're here this week. And so having a conversation around that and how we can build power together. So yeah, we're excited. We are getting ready after lunch. We're going to go on an environmental justice tour. Some local folks who've hosted us that have been super great are taking us out to visit some of these facilities so we could actually see and ground our work in the local context. So we're going to be looking at some of the chemical plants, the oil and gas refineries that are here. There's just hundreds and hundreds of different facilities here, polluting and impacting communities here on the ground for a long time, and lots of groups that are working. So we're going to be connecting with those folks this afternoon on a tour, and then are going to wrap up here and go into our team retreat to digest all of this information. So yeah, just wanted to say a quick hello. We're looking forward to continuing to engage in this space and have our members engage in this space and share more about what comes out of this convening, especially around our strategies. We're hoping to continue in this structure through the next year, and as long as we can continue to be able to support these groups to continue their work. So yeah, happy to answer any questions in the chat if they come up.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, Denaya. It's so great to see so much climate action happening on ground in the US. This is truly inspiring and uplifting. We wish you all the best with the rest of your gathering. Thank you so much. So, with this final intervention, we have come to the end of today's session. And I want to take an opportunity to say a very big thank you to all of us here on the call. We are almost on the second hour of our Global Action Hub call, and you've all stayed put, from our speakers to our moderators to our facilitators to our tech team and the participants. You have been awesome. And to our birthday girl, Lucia, have a wonderful day. And I just want to say I'm honored to be your moderator for today. Thank you all so much. I'll pass it on to Sonia.
Thank you so much, Emma, for that moderation. So next slide, please. Just before we close, we have a few announcements. So for our upcoming events, we have a lot of interesting, exciting events happening next week. So we are launching our NDC Tracker webpage. This webpage will help you track progress of national government climate commitments, as well as monitor their country commitments and identify gaps and opportunities for engagement. We are also launching Country NDC Policy Brief for Chile, and the following week for South Africa. And also next week, the Gaia at COP30 webpage will go live. This will have our demands, the list of members who will be at COP, as well as the events where we will be participating in. And next slide. So what's next for us? Our next call is scheduled for next year, January 27, 2026. And for that, our agenda will be the International Zero Waste Month, which will be focusing on zero waste finance. We'll also do a COP30 recap and an INC recap, and of course, a breakout session to talk about our vision of the future. So we'll be sending our link where you can register for the next meeting. This has been an amazing sharing from all our speakers. Thank you so much for joining us. See you in the next meeting. And good morning, good afternoon, and good night for all those in Asia. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank